Hi, I'm Michelle Renee Hyatt of American Quilter Society, and I am here at AQS QuiltWeek Paducah. We are in the large quilt stationary machine quilted category, which is sponsored by Husqvarna Viking, and I'm with the first place winner, the Janet Stone, who I've long been an admirer of. So this is a thrill for me. So Janet, tell me a little bit about your quilt.
Well, it's called An Angel Watching Over You, EWE, hence the sheep. It was inspired by Pennsylvania Dutch fractors, which are watercolor calligraphy things that they did back in the 1700s up to like the 1850s. They were done using kind of folk art style drawings and a particular kind of calligraphy. Okay. Mostly for birth certificates and baptismal certificates and things like that. And I've just always liked the motifs because I kind of tend to like folk art things, and so the motifs were inspired from that. So
excellent. And so when you are designing this, do you tend to start with the center and then build on, or do you have a thought in mind of how the entire quilt will look?
Well, I typically draw them out on a piece of graph paper before I start, but they rarely end up like the original drawing, but I have to sort of graph them out to figure out how big it's going to be. I'm sure I did not draw all these motifs on my original drawing because I'm more inspired when I get started by the fabric, so I just kind of knew that I was going to fill the space. I knew I kind of wanted to make this a little more random instead of doing like blocks, because I've done a lot of block quilts and I was enough of that, so I wanted to do something a little more random, although I do have the blocks on the alphabet on the edge. But
yours trademark.
Yes, of course. Yes, that and the sheep. Yeah.
And then there's a little message that was sent to you in your fabric for this quilt, wasn't there?
Yes, a little serendipitous thing. I knew I kind of want to make this a little kind of a homage to my mom, who passed away in 2012, and hence the name. And when I started working on it, the background fabric, which I'd had for probably 2 or 3 years before I ever started this quilt, of course it's got the alphabet in it, and I tend to collect alphabet fabrics, but the title of the fabric was Lexington, and my mom grew up in Lexington, Missouri. So I thought, well, isn't that interesting? So it was a little kind of a serendipitous thing that, yeah.
Now, all of this is raw edge applique?
It's all raw edge fused applique. I use a blanket stitch for all the edge work, and it's quilted on a sit-down sewing machine, regular sewing machine.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And then how about some of the threaded accents?
Well, the scallop over here is a cord that I couch down. There's some covered buttons on the quilt. They're just plastic buttons that I cover sitting in front of the TV, watching TV, and then I glue them on with a really good glue that obviously holds really well.
It's been holding up.
Yeah. And there's some other buttons on this quilt which are kind of interesting. Those are actually vintage, what they call Dorset buttons.
Oh, yes.
From England. I didn't know anything about those. A friend of mine, Gilbert in Houston, told me about those. I told him I kind of was conversing with him when I was making the quilt, and I said I wanted something like a button, but I was already doing covered buttons, so I wanted something different. And he said, well, what about Dorset buttons? I'm like, what's a Dorset button? So he told me about those, and I actually found those on Etsy. I think they're from Czechoslovakia, but
oh, wow.
Yeah.
And they fit right in.
Yeah, they're kind of a cotton thread
and button. Then up by the angel, are those buttons as well?
Those are, the little gold pieces they're just a little hot fix thing, like the hot fix crystals, only they call them nail studs instead of rhinestones. And those just go on with the little heat tool and stick on, and yeah.
And then if I could take you back to your center one more time.
Yeah.
When you're designing this, do you have all of these laid out, like all your little accents, or do you come back in and determine that you need a little bit more and you put little things here
more
and
the
there?
latter. Yeah, more the
Okay.
latter. I kind of get the main things that I kind of had in mind. Of course, the sheep went in the middle. I knew I wanted the house. This cat is in memory of my Mr. Siamese cat who passed away several years ago. He actually,
I love his eyes.
He actually appears in another quilt of mine too, but he was a good boy. So I kind of get the main pieces out, and then I kind of filled in from there. I mean, some of these circle motifs were actually sort of to fill in space, and the little flowers.
And then did you put them down before you quilted it,
yes,
or did they come in
everything's
after?
down before, yeah.
And then you come in and quilt it.
Yeah.
It is just so beautiful.
Thank you.
I really love it. And one more last question about the name. So did you name it first and then go off of that?
It
or
kind of
once?
came when I designed it because I knew I was going to do the angel. The angel is actually sort of inspired by, there's a lot of really old headstones in cemeteries like up in the eastern part of the country. They have these really interesting folk arty kind of angels on them, and I looked at a whole bunch of those on the internet, and sort of that was inspired by those angels from those old tombstone heads. So yeah, I had the whole idea in mind, and naming quilts is the worst part of making a quilt.
I feel the same. I feel the same.
But yeah,
So that's why
but
I
it
was
did kind of come
curious.
together. Yeah.
And your next one is getting ready, right?
This one is number 23. 24 and 25 are finished. 25 has already been to the shows. No, 24. Can't keep track.
In the alphabet series.
Yeah, we're doing 26, and 26 is under the needle as we speak. So
Excellent,
I should have
excellent.
it done hopefully in another couple of months. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Well, I can't wait
Yeah.
to see it.
Me too.
So thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time
you.
to interview with us.
Thank you.
And we hope that you will enter a quilt at AQS.